Hey there, Luskoteers. Welcome to Hey, it's the Luskos. We are your hosts, Levi and Jennie, and we welcome you back to another episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, subscribing, sharing, being a part of this beautiful thing that we call family. Jennie, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I don't have a headache.
That's awesome. That's important to note. Yeah, we were saying last night how everybody always tells somebody when they have a headache. But when was the last time you told somebody, hey, guess what? I don't have a headache. Let's be good news sharers and not just bad news sharers.
Right? So I'm practicing.
You have no headache.
No.
I have no headache.
Great.
Here we are with no headaches.
Congratulations.
But it really is true with the negativity bias. It's so much easier to share because bad things weigh more than good things in our memory.
True.
Our brains tend to hold them better. What do they say? Bad, negative things are like Velcro. They stick to you. Positive things are like Teflon. They slide off of you. You forget about it. So we should get better at being like, hey, I just took Clover to Walgreens and we had fun, which I did. And that was fun. So I do like Walgreens. I like being around it. I used to do almost all my Christmas shopping at Walgreens. Because I would forget about it until like...
At what age?
11
Levi
o'clock.
And Jennie,
oh, shoot.
Is Jennie.
That scared me so bad.
Me too.
Did it scare you?
Yes.
Sorry. So spoiler alert, we have a Q&A episode coming and I just fired the first question.
Oh, my heart is
Jennifer.
beating faster.
It scared me a lot. So now I
Like,
have a
who's in
headache.
the room?
I have a headache now. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I used to do my shopping at Walgreens.
How old were you?
I was probably 19, 20, Bible college era. I'd get home from Bible college and for Christmas break and it'd be like, forgetting about it. And then it's like 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve. It's like, oh, I have not done any shopping. So I'd have to go to Walgreens.
And the only place open would be Walgreens.
Walgreens, you got chocolate oranges, you got Easter decorations.
1 hour photo.
I'd get like my sister an eyeliner, from the Maybelline section, it's just like.
Your sister Becca?
It would either one of them. Just the worst Christmas presents ever.
Oh my gosh.
That was all I could do.
That is so funny. Our kids shop for Christmas at Walgreens.
At Walgreens.
Yeah.
It's underrated. It is kind of a nice little store. Good experience. Okay, so
before we get into our time together today, we did want to just talk about our internship. That deadline to sign up is coming up soon. Not entirely sure when.
The dates are May 28th through August 11th.
Of the internship.
The deadline to apply is 1 month from now. So I think it's the end of March. I think it's before April 1st you have to get your application in. And that's not an April Fool's joke.
Oh.
No, it's serious.
Okay.
I never joke about internships because that's how I met my wife. I would not meet you.
You would not meet me?
The Holy Spirit has his ways, so it could have happened. But without an internship, baby, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here.
Honestly.
And the great thought is someone, could be interns. It sounded like a bell ringing in like the next Creed 3. But it doesn't do it just right.
No.
Very nice. You could be sitting here with us helping us do this podcast as an intern. I don't know if our podcast is going to get one of the interns, but we should.
Well, honestly, we've heard so many stories of interns that we have had who have said, my mom listens to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or my grandma told me about the internship.
So you're saying this could be an intern assist?
Yes.
Meaning you listen, you tell someone who's 18 to 25 about the internship and they come out and help us with this podcast.
I think that speaks to the power of encouragement of, hey, I heard about this, you should do this, or I think you would be great doing this. I think sometimes maybe we don't take that step of just inviting someone to join something or be a part of something, but we've seen so many people come as a result of being invited to church, to internship.
The honest truth is a summer in Montana is amazing. I mean, summer out here, hiking and fishing and boating and lake stuff and river stuff and, all those things. Or, you stay in a dark apartment and be on the internet the whole time. I don't know how you're going to do it. It's just really up to you. But during the day, you're going to make friends. You're going to help us out here at the Hey, it's the Luskos, at the church, be a part of our movement conference. It'll be one of the best summers of your life.
It's going to be full and fabulous.
You'll get college credit for it.
Oh, right.
Literally, through our partnership with Fresh Life Leadership College, we can offer college credits for the internship. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah. So sign up. It's ages 18 to 25. or tell the 18 and 25-year-olds in your life that it's an option for them this summer, and we would love to have you.
Yep. Go down to freshlife.church, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you'll see their information on the internship. And we have literally interns coming from all around the country. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. And we'd love to have you out.
Can't wait.
Well, today on the podcast, we get to hear from you. We get to hear from Luskos, and it's going to be great because you've submitted your questions, and we love this episode. Always a pleasure because it's full of variety. It's full of voices. We get the color. We get the flavor of different parts of the country, different listeners who have chimed in with questions, and we always love this because we don't know what this is going to have for us.
We don't know the questions beforehand.
We don't know much, but we get to listen, we get to hear your voice, and then we get to talk about what's on your mind. Yeah. And I think that's really fun. So you can go to levilusko.com or jennylusko.com and submit a voice memo with your question for the next episode, which will be in the month of May. And we'll get down to those questions as best as we can and really have a lot of fun.
I thought you were going to say we're going to get down and dirty.
We are going to get down into the weeds of these questions, get our hands dirty in the
weeds.
What is the title of a sentence that's got a question into it? Interrogative. We're going to get down and dirty with those interrogative questions, those sentences with questions in the middle of them.
Or interrogative.
Interrogative. That's very good, Jenny. All right, let's now fire off Jennifer's question without causing us to pee our pants. This iPad sitting here, I hit it on accident, and man, she just came in and was like, wait, where'd she come from?
I don't think your seat can handle that.
How'd she get in here?
It's not easily cleanable.
It's pea green. It's ready to go. How would you describe the color of this chair?
No, it's like forest green.
Forest green.
Yeah. Or Kelly green.
I'd have to be really dehydrated to a disturbing...
I'm saying for cleaning purposes, not color.
No, I'm saying how... No. My question was, how dehydrated would I have to be to wet my pants on this chair and have no one notice? Like that it just blended right in. I'd have to be really dehydrated.
Oh.
Or have had fought Apollo Creed in the ring and have him do a number on my kidneys.
Oh my gosh.
And then my pee would come out forest green.
Or you would have eaten a lot of kale.
Asparagus. Yeah, you would smell it before you saw it.
Ugh.
Sorry.
TMI.
I'm sorry. Look, we've gone to a dark place.
Sorry, guys.
All right, here we go. This is now Jennifer's question.
Hello, Levi and Jennie. My name is Jennifer, and I am from Sacramento, California. And my question I have is, I guess the prompt is, how do you feel about fasting, biblically and personally, like intermediate fasting and stuff like that? Okay. Bye, you guys.
Okay. So Jennifer, thank you for the question. Love Sacramento. And we want to talk about this on two levels. I'm going to let Jenny in a minute talk about it from the level of spiritual implications. But right at the end, you threw in intermittent fasting, which I think is a very popular... How funny is it, by the way? I was just thinking about this. I was thinking about how funny it is that it's like people today would hear a pastor be like, hey, we're going to do a fast. They'd be like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that. But then it's like you hear Joe Rogan be like, hey, intermittent fasting's the rage. Like, well, I'm down for it. It's like all of a sudden
just put a word in front of fasting.
Hard things done for your soul feel so hard because you're fighting against the flesh. But hard things done because you're trying to hack your life or somehow get better at something, all of a sudden suffering's easy.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss in the 4 Hour Body said fasting's great for fat reduction. It's like, oh, I can do it. And it's like, we're going to do this fast for Lent. It's like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. 40
days? Yeah. 20 days?
How easy.
5 days?
So the big thing, right, is that intermittent fasting, which I love. I love that because it's really one of the biggest handles on keeping my weight in check. If I wait till noon, I've done it differently, where I've done what they call the warrior fast, which is a 4-hour eating window, and then you're not eating for 20 hours. That is more difficult up front, but once you get into it, really easy. My most comfortable fast is the 16-8, where you eat for 8 hours, you don't eat for 16. I did it for a very long time, where I stopped eating at night at 8 p.m. and didn't eat till the following day at noon. And then I would eat noon to 8. You're just restricting the windows of calories, really, right? And then
But
if
do
I
you
do
fill
that,
that 8 hours with like a bunch of calories?
I've done it
or-
differently. When I'm on my best, I would say right now at this particular moment in my life, I'm not at my absolute most in control state. I've been flexing a little bit.
But you are in other ways.
Yep, but not diet.
Yeah.
And look, here's the deal. It's so much better for you if you're going to do one thing, exercise or diet. It's what I have found for my body. It's a lot better to pick the diet, but I find it a lot easier to keep the cardio going and then let the diet kind of be what it is.
Right.
But if I do that intermittent fasting and restrict the eating window, your body goes into long-term fat storage after a certain time. And then if I do exercise while in a fasted state, it's like almost like it seems to me, this is not exact science, but that cardio counts almost for double, right?
Oof.
So if I don't eat and then in that fasted state, go on a run, go on uphill skiing or do weight training or tennis or whatever, I feel like there's almost a 2x benefit on that physical fitness. And then I also love the cognitive benefits of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
I find,
that's true.
if you get hungry, your body kind of shifts into this mode of like, look for food. But that same ability of hyper focusing can be, kind of pointed in a different direction.
Yeah.
So for me, whether it's writing a chapter of a book or writing a sermon or whatever, I find my ability to, because when you get your stomach full, there's almost this like sedentary, want to sit back, almost
Food
like
coma.
food coma. Yeah, right. So the opposite
Siesta.
of that is that hyper focused, my brain is, kind of clicking.
It's so true.
And when you're in a fasted state, that I always fast on Sundays, always till noon. I love preaching in that fasted state. I find my mind's more clear. I always get about 30 minutes of nausea in a fasted state. Normally that comes for me around 9:30. If I can push through that, I'm fine to go even up until that 20 hour mark. And then I'm ready for that one meal. But that 30 minutes of nausea is always a make or break point because I'm always like, gosh, I feel so sick. I feel like I'm never going to stop feeling sick.
Yeah.
And so one thing that helps me in that time is bulletproof coffee. I'll throw some MCT oil or grass-fed butter into a black cup of coffee and churn it up, deal with the oil slick. And it seems like, while not enough calories to break your fast, it's enough to give your brain something, those triglycerides in that oil.
How do you churn it?
I use a whisk or a spoon. I don't like it. I don't like the taste of it. I don't like the residue on my lip at all. But I do like that it's like enough to make me feel like I've eaten something. But you do have to watch out. If you've never done that before, be near a toilet the first time you try it, because you will. When your body's adapting to that, find that it's quite diuretic in its impact.
Wow.
But then secondarily, it takes that cognitive benefit of the fast and turns it up to like 75 from 12.
Man.
It's awesome. So from a non-spiritual side, there's a lot of benefits to intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
But of course, we're not doctors. Talk to your doctor before you take any of this advice. But now, Jennie, why don't we talk about the spiritual side of fasting?
There is something, the Bible talks all about it. I think specifically of when the disciples came to Jesus and they were like, we were trying to heal these demon-possessed people and we couldn't do it. And Jesus was like, this kind only comes out by fasting and prayer. And I'm not entirely sure, but I know throughout the Bible there's fasting, but fasting and prayer tends to go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because for me, Sunday mornings when I'm not preaching and Sunday mornings when I am, but Sunday mornings I generally fast until noon as well. But they're praying for certain people, praying for our church, praying for just whatever God puts in my heart. But there is something really powerful about worshiping in a fasted state while praying for people. And that has been very powerful for me personally. But that's kind of a rhythm I'm in. But as a church, we have gotten in a rhythm of fasting and praying. In the past, it's been like 21 days. Mm-hmm. It's this year, I think, is 20 days. But there is something about gathering as a people of God and collectively fasting, and that meaning refraining from food. I think it looks different for different people, but I think the biggest thing is messing with food a little bit. I think some people will fast from social media.
I think we have to be clear. Fasting biblically always is food.
Yeah.
So you can't say I'm fasting from Netflix. You can say I'm abstaining from Netflix, but a fast is to deprive your body of food. Yeah.
Because when you mess with food, it what do you call it? Swirls things up in your soul. Like,
did you say, what do you call it? And then said swirls things up in your soul as though that were like the technical definition you were reaching for? What do you call it? Yes, the swirling effect of the soul.
Whirlwind of
I think that's how you order things at Dairy Queen. I'd like chocolate and vanilla swirl. I don't think that's a technical definition of fasting, but it does.
A swirl in my soul?
It does work in your soul.
A blizzard.
A blizzard.
A blizzard in my soul.
Hold it upside down. It's going to be fine. Yeah. But you're right, Jennie. If fasting messes with the flesh, and I think for that reason, when you're not doing so for, body hacking or doing so for longevity or for fat loss, and that's one of the reasons we moved our church fast from January to the Lent season, because I felt like something was getting lost in our fast when it was happening simultaneously to so many of our fitness goals that accompany a new year.
Totally.
And I kind of disliked the fact that it was taking place at a time when there was already such a natural, oh yes, good, I'm glad about this because I was really looking to shed 10 pounds before spring break. I just feel like it was kind of like the new year has its own begin the new year, new you energy.
Right.
And I didn't love that. So I felt like the Lord was leading us to turn the season between, the passion sequence, his whole journey towards the cross, and our reflection and remembering of that Lent season as Jesus was facing his death and his resurrection and all of that, to have that accompanied by our preparing for Easter worship through depriving our body of food for a time that we might, give ourselves over to prayer and fasting in a deliberate way.
Yeah.
And we have done different things. We've done just juice fasts. I've done 5 days all water fast. That was very difficult up to day 3, the headaches and the sluggishness, but felt great on the day 4, day 5. We've done a lot of different Daniel fasts, which is pretty much just you take out meat, sweets, and alcohol. And I think the key thing is that you're doing so to seek God and to remind yourself of your weakness, to remind yourself of your need for God.
Yeah.
And there are tremendous blessings attached biblically as you look into it. And, honestly, chain breaking power that comes through the deliberate giving yourself of up to a time of in a season of prayer.
Yeah. A great resource that has been great for us is a book by Pastor Jensen Franklin called Fasting. And it really just kind of lays it out so simply what it is. And one of the things that he mentions in that book is that as you fast, sometimes you don't, quote unquote, feel anything while you're fasting, but you have no idea what is happening in the spiritual world. You have no idea what you're pushing forward in your heart, in your life, in your family, in your generations, as you're seeking God first, as you're letting him lead you in that. And as you're praying, it's just such a move of faith because you don't see much with your eyes. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you feel breakthrough in certain areas in your life, or like you said, chains breaking or strongholds breaking down. But a lot of times you don't feel anything except the nausea and except the hunger pains, but being mindful of the fact that as we feel those hunger pains, like not going to the fridge, not going to the pantry, not going to a coffee shop or whatever, where you normally like just fill that ache or fill that hunger, but you go to God's word, you go to the Lord in prayer, and it's a life-changing habit, whether it's a weekly thing that you feel like God's leading you to, or once a month thing. Maybe you fast one day a month, or one day a week, or a period of time in a year. I don't know. God is so good to lead you. And I just feel like in any way, shape, or form, fasting and praying is essential.
Yep. And it's perfect timing right now if you want to jump in with us. We are starting up a fast on March 20th as a church community at Fresh Life. And so on the back end of this episode right now, it's March 22nd. So we're just 2 days into it.
Is this March 15th?
No, it's March 22nd.
Oh, okay.
So 2 days into this fast right now, And that's kind of, we're recording it ahead of time, which is why I had to check. But as you listen to this,
just started
2 days in. Yeah. So you could jump in with us now. And
I think we start the 19th.
Oh, is that right? Well,
Sunday the 19th.
Okay, great. So, and we're preaching alongside it through different passages of scripture that are, all preparing our hearts for adoring Jesus at Easter. And I just think, the race of faith is what we should have as our mental model. Hebrews 12, run this race of faith with endurance. And if you want to run a race, you want to go fast. They don't call it slowing. They call it fasting. So if you want to run fast, you have to, spiritually speaking, build your heart up. And, there's something disruptive about messing with food. Man shall not live by bread alone. So when you remind yourself of that,
on every word
it causes you to care for God's word more. So give it a whirl. And Jennifer, thanks for the question, and experiment with it, right? So, Yep.
Hey, Pastor Levi and Jennie. This is Zach Kimbrough from Houston, Texas, currently living in Enterprise, Alabama. And I wanted to dive into the Last Supper on the Moon series in the book you released about a year ago, Pastor Levi. In part 4 of your sermon series titled, This is Only a Test, you mentioned how a faith that can't be tested is a faith that can't be trusted. You mentioned numerous times throughout the book as well how when we're tested, we're called to look up, lift our eyes, take heart, and consider the heavens. Why do you believe that looking up, fixing our eyes above, considering the moon, stars, and outer space is so vital for our walk with Jesus and conquering our inner space? By the way, if you haven't read the book, The Last Supper on the Moon, it is truly the greatest book I've ever read, and it has sparked my love for space exploration even more. Thank you, Lusko fam, and I hope to see y'all soon.
Oh,
Zach, we love you.
That's my guy right there. Zach Kimbrough, recent graduate from West Point Military Academy, and just an absolute legend, young man who loves God. Girls, if you are out there and you are single, this is a man of God who is
gentleman.
He has his heart in the right place. He's full of honor. He's going to helicopter school, learning how to fly helicopters, Apaches and Chinooks and Blackhawks. I mean, this is a guy who's got his life and his head screwed on right, but he's full of integrity.
Yes.
And so, Zach, I don't know if you were looking for product placement there in the dating marketplace, but thank you for your kind words. And I think that it is so good for us to look and lift up our heads. I was just listening to Pastor Louis Giglio preaching about text neck. Have you heard this?
Mm-mm.
Our cervical spine holds our head upright, and the human head, all things considered, with apologies to Jerry Maguire, it weighs 11 pounds, not 8. I've always thought it was 8, but Louis was talking about it's actually 11 pounds, the average head.
Wow.
And he said that every degree you tilt your head forward causes your head to weigh more on your spine. So it goes from weighing 11 functionally to every angle up to 60 pounds. If your head's really tilted over, the force it's putting on your cervical spine is actually the equivalent of 60 pounds because your head's stooped over.
Wow.
And so many people, literally walk through an airport, walk through a mall. Yeah, you hear that and everybody just sits ramrod straight all of a sudden. But every additional degree forward causes the effect cumulatively on your neck to be greater in force than it actually is.
Dang.
And it's a huge phenomenon because everyone just walks over slumped around on their phones. So
which, by the way, do not text and walk. Just walk.
Yeah, come on.
Texting and walking.
Yeah.
You always run into people. Not you, but
or
people.
Signs or structures or people have died texting and walking into traffic.
Oh my gosh.
But even just that, God doesn't want us to live stooped over. Lift up your heads, right? We're to stand tall. And so one of the natural effects of lifting our eyes and looking up is you actually get to see these things that inspire you, that are declaring the glory of God. The aurora borealis, the stars, even the clouds, the sunrise, the sunset. It's so good for your soul. It's good for your spine. It's good for your mental health. So inner health, outer health. That's why the messaging of the Last Supper on the Moon is like Psalm 8 says, to lift your eyes and say, what is man? When I consider things that you made with your fingers, the sun, the moon, the stars, you call them out by name. God knows every name for every star. He breathed them out. He gets glory day into day in seeing things that we've never seen. The James Webb Telescope is sending back stuff, and you read the headlines like, wow, the James Webb Telescope found some things that shouldn't have even been there. Said who, right? Because of what we said with technology that's less than 100 years old is what the universe is. And now it's saying, oh, this is actually what's going on. Guess what? Ever since creation, the dawn of creation, God saw those things, and God got glory from them. And so when we see them, it fills our hearts with awe. It fills our hearts with wonder and beauty. You need food, you need water, you need air. but you also need beauty. You were created to bask in the glory of creation. Adam's first job was to rule and reign over and speak words over what God had made, be a steward of creation. And that filled a need in his soul.
Yeah.
We weren't meant to live in an apartment and watch a TV. And sometimes I get sad driving through dark neighborhoods, or sometimes I run early in the morning and just to see TVs on. I mean, I'll see sometimes 5 a.m. and it feels like a creeping, peeping Tom thing, but it's not. Their windows are open. It's their fault. And I'll run on a trail and just see literally people at 5 a.m. watching a movie, watching a show. And it's like, I don't know. I just think that deprives our hearts of some of the things that we need to thrive. And so the more we lift our eyes and see and bask in the glow, I was on an airplane the other day when we flew over the Grand Canyon, and the pilot came over and was like, hey, just so you all know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm flying over the Grand Canyon right now. You can look out both windows. And I looked back in the airplane, and literally 1 out of every 4 rows, they didn't even bother to lift the shade.
Dang.
They just kept watching their movie.
I didn't realize that.
And just to think of...
They maybe didn't hear because of their headphones.
I mean, you can hear that announcement through the noise-canceling headphones or the in-flight entertainment because it pauses it whenever he talks.
Yeah.
And I saw so many... I checked just because I thought I was interested. So many people, you have the chance to see the Grand Canyon, and they continued to watch a rerun of Seinfeld.
Wow.
And so yeah, just look out more and look up more. It's not a heavy condemnation thing. It's just prioritize the sensing of awe in your daily life.
And I think it's more simple than we make it too, because like for our family, I think that's one thing that's so special about the moon is that it's usually out during the day and the night. So for us as a family, like we'll be hiking and one of us will see the moon and the person will tell everyone moon and everyone looks up and then Lennox, you taught him a weird thing of pretending to eat the moon, like grabbing it.
Yeah.
So he does that. But I think it's more simple, like just looking up and seeing and being aware of God's faithfulness.
Yeah, we were in Texas this last week and we landed. It was like 6 o'clock duskish, or maybe it was a little earlier, maybe it was 5, but we saw the moon, and the guy who was driving us around, I pointed out to him, I was like, you guys have that here too? Like, he looked at me really funny. And then Daisy grabbed it and pretended to eat it, which is just one of our silly traditions, like you said.
Or in movies or whatever, we always
So that's Zach Kimbrough on Instagram, at Zach Kimbrough, ladies. And also shout out to Zach's dad, who took the Last Supper on the moon to the International Space Station with him.
No big deal.
On his last mission to
space. We love you, Kimbrough family. Yep. All of you.
And Zach, we're praying for you, and thank you for serving our country the way that you are.
Yes, so thankful for you.
We're absolutely amazed at what God's doing through you. All right, there you go. Zach Kimbrough. Here's number 3.
Hey guys, this is Ika Caraballo Sotomayor. I am from Cartagena, Colombia, currently living in Greenwood, Indiana. And my question is super simple. I just wanted to know when or if you're going to have the Marriage Devotional, but in Spanish. Gracias.
Okay, Ika.
Gracias, Ika.
What a beautiful, beautiful voice. And thank you for your question. Let me say how much I love Colombia. It was one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite trips I've ever taken. Getting to go and be there. I'm trying to say the word Medellin, Colombia. It was beautiful. The people, the culture.
You bought me this bracelet from there, and I've had it on for what, 7 years?
I bought that bracelet for you in the airport in Colombia. It was like I had got to the end of the trip. It's like, oh crap, I didn't get Jennie anything.
Oh, the truth comes out.
I told you that.
I don't remember.
Oh well. I wish I could have said I bought it at a vendor or something.
But I still have it on.
On the top of a mountain with a volcano blowing up in the background. That's where I bought it for you.
I am waiting to see how long that I can keep this on.
So you know that song, Day and Night, Night and Day, Let Incense Arise? That's Jennie with this bracelet. She never takes it off. She has not taken that bracelet off since I gave it to her. Well, how many years has that been?
I don't know. I tried to think about that the other day.
I think it was 2016.
7 years.
I loved that trip. I would go back to Colombia.
I don't wear jewelry not as a rule, but like as just in general because I don't like it. But this is the only jewelry I really wear except for this necklace.
Ika, in answer to your question, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Let's hear it one more time.
Hey guys, this is Ika Caraballo.
Okay, yeah, Ika. We are not in control of Spanish translation of our books. I wish I was. Here's how it works. You write a book. The book gets published by a publisher. The publisher works with other publishers around the world who will contact our publisher, which is our books have come out through W, which is owned by Thomas Nelson, which is owned by HarperCollins. So then a Spanish publisher would contact our publisher and say, hey, we'd like to secure the rights to this book, and it'll go out in that language. So different publishers have published some of our books in Spanish in the past, and I hope and pray that the Marriage Devotional would do that. So if you want this book in Spanish, one thing you could do would be look up Swipe Right, which is Elige Bien, I think is what they call it, on Amazon, and find out who published it. I can't remember the name of the publisher, but if you contacted them and wrote them an email and said, hey, I'd love to have Marriage Devotional in Spanish, that could get the gears going. I'm sure they would take that request seriously. So our hope would be it would happen, but it would require a Spanish publisher approaching our publisher for the rights to do that, which we say yes to all that.
Yes,
we've never
Lord,
said no.
Let it be.
We want our books to go out in every tribe, tongue, language, nation, all the things. So
amazing.
Yep. So
Gracias,
thank you.
Ika.
Gracias.
Hey, Levi and Jennie. My name is Josh from Cape Town, South Africa. My question for you guys is, when you are in the wilderness season, what has been, in your experience, the best way to navigate it with God as you make your way to the promised land? Absolutely love you guys. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Josh.
So good to hear from you, Josh. What a lekker question that was. Lekker means good in South African parlance. I'm just throwing out like the one language tidbit I know from South Africa, here to serve. Thank you. Jennie, what are your thoughts on wilderness seasons?
I think that they happen in all of our lives, and they're seasons. And I think a key thing that you have taught us well is training for the trial you're not yet in. And I think a key thing of navigating while you're in the wilderness is training and preparing before the wilderness. And sometimes we don't know when we're going to enter in. Sometimes we kind of have a feeling like we're heading into wilderness season. But I think the key is being aware of it, first of all, aware of those seasons, but knowing that in the middle of the wilderness or the storm, I think you could probably use that word for that same season, is not making huge life decisions in the midst of it. And that's something that you remind me of, Levi, a lot, is in the middle of the hard moment, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the wilderness, holding on tight to Jesus, trusting him, and not making a huge, big, like, well, I'm never going to do this then, or I'm never going to go here. I'm never, like, just steady, keeping your eyes on Jesus in the middle of it. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
1,000. I would also say, if you've ever been on an airplane when they enter into a holding pattern, and no one loves that feeling, that weird whine of the engines, kind of that round and round you go, you can tell you're doing these accelerations and these turns and these, the holding pattern feels so terrible, but it's for a good reason. Things aren't ready for you on the ground yet. There's not a runway. There's not a gate. There's no sense in landing. You wouldn't want him to come down for a landing if there's going to be trouble on the tarmac, right? Yeah. So a holding pattern is necessary, and it's because something's being prepared for your arrival. So if you think about it, at times we want God to just put us down. It's like, no, you don't want to get down because you're not ready for it. It's not ready for you there. There would be a crash maybe if you tried to come in. Maybe the winds are too much. Maybe there's not a space for you yet. So if you're in a holding pattern, it's not because you're forgotten. It's because something's being prepared, maybe in you and maybe for you. Yeah. So Elijah, so David, so John the Baptist. He was in the wilderness until his time of being announced to the nation of Israel. Joseph in the pit. He wasn't ready yet. If he would have come out too soon, he might not have stayed humble in the midst of his being the second in command to Pharaoh during, the famine. He had to be trained for that. He had to get ready for that. So you're not forgotten is one thing to remind yourself. If God's got me in a holding pattern going in circles, then it's because he's preparing something for me on the ground. And when it's time, when it's ready, he'll let me know. So I'm not going to take rash action. I'm not going to try and, do something on my own, because if I do, I will either fail miserably or be an even more miserable success.
Hello,
which
Jonah.
Warren Wiersbe said,
Yeah.
right? What's that quote? We heard it from Anthony Evans a couple weeks ago. Your cries of desperation will bounce off the walls of an even bigger house. It's like if you make it happen on your own without God and forfeiting peace along the way. So I think you're being prepared, and like you said, get the most out of it. You don't get to determine when you come out of your wilderness season, but you do get to determine in what shape you come out of it.
Wow.
So don't waste it.
Good.
Use it. Use it for good. Use that season to really develop your character, develop your six-pack, develop your eyes of faith. All of those things that when God's good and ready, that you're super developed and you're coming out of it trim in fighting shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell the kids, I feel like I tell it to them every day, but I tell them practice patience and practice kindness. And I think that, and whenever I tell them, I'm always telling myself that too, but and no matter what you're in right now, just practice patience, because then when you're in a bigger season or a bigger struggle or a bigger wilderness, so to speak, you've been in that rhythm of practicing patience, practicing waiting on God, practicing his presence, and practicing kindness in the middle of it, not letting the wilderness, like you said, how are you going to come out of it? No, don't let it make you bitter, but let it make you better and stronger and kinder.
And whatever that wilderness ending time looks like, what will you then wish you had done during this time? So I kind of think like, okay, maybe I felt a wilderness, in my Bible college season or just post Bible college or whatever it was, pre-Fresh Life. What do I wish now? What I would have done more then? For one example would be like, okay, I knew church planning was going to involve preaching and leading and vision casting. I didn't think as much about the business aspect of it. So had I boned up more on budgeting practices or that kind of thing, accounting stuff, like HR, like those sorts of things, I didn't realize I would need.
Yeah. So
whatever your wilderness ending time is in your mind, what then will you wish you had done more of now while you have the luxury of maybe some more discretionary time, because wildernesses tend to have those moments, and if you feel like God is far from you, I like Jennie's message she gives, and it's a chapter in her book called The Silent Treatment. Remember, it's a treatment, and a treatment is something God uses medicinally or in some way to develop you. So if he's giving you the silent treatment, he's not mad at you. He's trying to coax out greater levels of character inside of you, greater levels of trust. And C.S. Lewis talks a lot about this, about how at times it seems if there's going to be big affection moments of God feeling near or visible real miracles, a lot of times those are early on in a Christian's development. And then oftentimes, there seems to be a tapering off of some of that. And that's because God wants to coax out greater levels of faith.
Yeah.
And so he's not pampering you with this, the treatment of like a pedicure. He's pampering you with the silence that is going to ask you, do you really believe?
Yeah.
Or do you need him every day to prove himself to be who he says he is to you? Or can you just trust that? Take him at his word.
Yeah.
And continue.
Yeah. I think of Psalm 23 and how the Lord is our shepherd. And we are obviously in that equation. We are the sheep, and he's going to be so faithful to lead us. And I love how it says that he makes us lie down in green pastures. And I've experienced that in my own life, whether breaking an ankle or whatever. But I feel like there are times where God makes us lie down. And so if he's making you lie down in for whatever reason, in whatever season, rest in him and remember that he's your shepherd and he loves you.
And do me a favor, Josh, get down to Musenberg if you can and buy a carrot cake from that little surf cafe there on the beach where that old man makes carrot cake every day.
Yes.
A carrot cake muffin in Musenberg, South Africa, outside of Cape Town, was one of the best carrot cake muffins I've ever had in my entire life.
Yes.
I can taste it right now. I can see. I hope that old man is still alive right now. And I know you can't with the customs, and I'll mail us one. So what I'll ask is you eat it and you think of us. And we will, when our fast is over, join you in our hearts and have one ourselves. All right. This is Sandy.
Hey guys, I was wondering how you guys choose to still enjoy the holidays after losing a child. We have also lost our son last year, and we were wondering how you guys choose to still have joy during the holidays. Thank you.
Well, Sandy, we're so sorry to hear of the loss and the pain of a child. There's no glib jumping into that. Like, oh yeah, we've been there. It's just, that's always,
in a year.
That's always such a hard thing, but we do share in that grief. We stand with you in that grief, and also in the hope of the resurrection. And that gives us the strength to stand and continue.
Yeah. And I think the answer to your question, you put right in there. You said, how do you choose? And I think that's exactly it. You choose. And sometimes it's choosing to celebrate in every moment, every hour. You're just choosing, first of all, you're choosing to trust God, and you're choosing to take the next step and the next breath and the next moment that he has for you. But that's exactly it. It's choosing to celebrate the holidays. It's choosing, maybe it'll be a different way, and it'll be shrouded in grief and pain and heartache, but choosing to walk forward. And I know for us, it was choosing to make it special for our kids still with us, even though maybe for Levi and I, we wouldn't do the things we normally would have done, but to choose to make it special and fun and sweet, and to celebrate and to honor them. And I
always try and say that what follows is descriptive, not prescriptive. I never want anyone to ever feel like, well, this is what the Luskos did when Linda died, so this is what you got to do. So you got to hear from God. You got to make your own choice. You got to understand you have your own unique set of circumstances.
Yeah.
But descriptive, not prescriptive, our story involves us coming to a critical crossroads because of the way Lenya's death was so intersected by Christmas.
Yeah.
You could not separate them from each other.
Mm-mm.
Christmas presents under the tree. We spent the night wrapping gifts. There was, her body lay in the funeral home on Christmas Day. We had the funeral the day after Christmas. So when that first Christmas came around the next year, which is around October, when you start seeing or maybe even earlier, all the Christmas stuff show up. I remember the first time I saw red cups in Starbucks, I started getting shaky because it was like, oh my gosh, it is here. It is coming. It is all around us. And it was going to be, I feel like for us, it was either going to be where we just did nothing for Christmas ever again and spent the rest of our lives with our head in the sand every November, December, or we just went the exact opposite route and ran headlong and mainlined Christmas as much as we could. And the reason those two things I felt like were going to be our tact was going to be either Christmas was going to represent what was taken from us, or Christmas was going to represent what it truly is all about, what Jesus came to give us that gives us hope to stand on.
That's right.
And so, yeah, if Christmas is just eggnog and frosty, then screw it all. I mean, who needs any of that,
Right.
triggering our sadness all the time? But if Christmas is Jesus coming to die, that sons of earth may no more die, right? Like Hark the Herald Angels says, then Christmas is actually our only thing that we have to stand on in our grief. So by choosing to rewrite associations, our decoration of our house and putting a tree up the next year and going even harder on Christmas, even though we had to get through sobs doing it, was almost a declaration of war on something precious being taken from us.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. I don't want to say it was easy, Sandy. It was really hard. It was very challenging, like shaking on the ground with Christmas decorations, finding those things that she had helped decorate last year and now not this year, and all that. But with time, it's become easier. And not because it gets any lighter, but because we become stronger. And so our personal thing was run towards the roar.
Yeah.
Not run away from stuff that scares you. Otherwise Christmas is going to be this taboo thing that we're going to have to be on eggshells on the rest of our life. And how are you going to avoid Christmas? It's everywhere. So now it's something I actually look forward to. I almost weirdly feel like a nearness now. Not that it's not without difficulties. But my experience, and I think if I can speak for you, our experience has been in not allowing it to become only a symbol of pain, but also of power.
Yes, absolutely. That's right.
Thank you for your question, Sandy. We have time for one more. Let me thank you to everybody who asked questions we didn't get to. Keep sending them. We'll get to more next month when we do another one of these episodes.
Yeah.
But we will end here with Morgan.
Morgan, I'm from South Carolina. I was wondering if you guys could talk about the couples who are not married but living together with kids. My boyfriend and I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old, and I was just wondering if y'all could touch on that and give some biblical background and maybe some advice.
Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Morgan.
Thank you for writing.
Thanks for your question.
That's so awesome that you're asking, what should I do? What should we do now? I think you have to ask yourself, and again, not knowing the context, whose kids they are they the product of your relationship with your boyfriend? Are they from him, from you? There's a lot to it. I would say, God's best and his highest is that if you're going to come together with someone and live together, that would happen in marriage, that you would have, come together in covenant, made this decision to form a life together, and then the kids, coming up in that environment. Obviously, you've made the decision to move in together, and usually that's finances or a fear of marriage or a trial marriage that kind of is, where people end up cohabitating for. And I know it's exceedingly common in our culture, but I would say the data on it is not good. If you want to one day be married to someone, if I had never met you and you said, hey, we were thinking of getting married and we want to be married, from now till the grave, till death do us part, what should we do? I would say a quick dip into the statistics and analytics on cohabitation would not be the right move, because only 1 out of 5 cohabitation situations ends up in marriage. And of those that do move in together before marriage and go on to actually say the vows. So 4 out of 5 times, think about that. 4 out of 5 times a couple lives together, they will not get married. Only 20% end up getting married. And of those that do, the chances of that marriage lasting is less than if you hadn't lived together first. Now, with that being said, God is the God of the impossible, and statistics mean nothing to him.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
That doesn't mean that you and your boyfriend or fiance or whatever the title is can't see God prevail. But I would say the best and greatest chance you would give the marriage would be that you guys would, if you wanted to get married, move out on your own for at least a season. Go through some premarital counseling. Even if that separation is really hard and difficult and he has to end up moving into someone's garage on a couch or something, and I've seen it happen lots of different ways. But for a season of time, even if it's short, to move away, to stop living together, and assuming you're sleeping together, to say for this season we're going to separate, for the season we're going to abstain, even just to rebuild on that foundation. And one of the reasons is the trust that you're going to be able to have in marriage when for a season you chose to trust God in how you approached each other.
Yeah.
This is not easy to hear. This is not what anybody wants to hear, but it's how we pursue God's best, even though it feels antiquated and old-fashioned. But I would just ask you, is the new and improved on God's really working? Because it's easy to thumb our nose at what God has to say. Well, that's you don't understand. He doesn't understand. He's out of touch with the reality. But it's but is our new way better?
Yeah.
Is our improvement better? And I would say in almost 9 out of 10 cases, it's not. And so to your point, I would say that it would probably be, if you wanted to seek God with this forming of a family together, then it would be probably the best move to move out for a season, and then ask the question, if we want to get married, to do so from that place of 2 houses coming together into one family.
Yeah, and if maybe your not rebuttal, but your response would be, well, what about the kids? I think that's also an opportunity to show your kids that you're wanting to seek God first and do what he's asking you to do and calling you to do. And I think, like Levi said, that would be a hard thing. Something that I read recently from Tim Keller, who wrote a book called The Meaning of Marriage. Excuse me. He said, because marriage is a legal binding covenant, some people will say, well, I don't need a paper to say like that I love my person. But he says that the legal, like, binding commitment covenant actually makes a marriage more intimate, because there's that commitment that you're saying, I'm in this and I'm committed to you and I'm forsaking all others and I'm living only unto you for as long as we both live. And there's a depth and an intimacy and a strength that comes from that. And even just the fact that marriage can also be described as the depth of character changing by the depth of friendship. And as you're in it, as you're committed, as it's a covenant before God and people, there's that commitment of strength that happens. And so even just that side of it as well.
And we would want to say all of what we've said, saying there's no sense of shame, Morgan, no sense of any of that, no sense of like you're less than, or, living somehow, in a way, it's like we could stand over you religiously and do this. We would just be pointing you towards what God wants, which is his best for our lives.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are, on that journey trying to figure that out. But I think we never, ever, ever will regret anything we've done, however difficult it is, to please God, and to honor him and to seek his best. Seek God with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, lean not on culture, lean not on what makes better financial sense. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. And so we believe that for you as you make decisions. And I think, if you had a conversation with that guy and said, hey, I feel like we need to move out. I feel like if we're going to come back together, like it needs to be honoring God. And there's a sense of like, there's no reciprocation on that. I think that kind of shows like, hey, I'm wanting to honor God and they're really not. And so that might be even a deal breaker right there of like, if this isn't something you're wanting to pursue, how can two walk together, Amos says, unless they are of one accord?
Yeah.
And I think you'll never regret those things you're doing to seek God and figure out his best for your life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you to everyone for the questions. Jennie, this has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always fun to clumsily kind of work our way through these dialogues with our podcast fam. So thanks, Luskos, and get more questions and we'll do it again. Next week, we have a very special guest. JP Pokluda is coming on the podcast. We don't always tell you who next week is, but JP's coming on. He's got a great podcast. What's the name of his podcast again? Becoming Something. Very popular college age and young adult age podcast. So that's coming up on the podcast. And until then, thank you for listening.
Yes, we love you.